Hey, Wolang Clan, welcome to series number 4 in our target language program, where we are here to make sure that you are reaching your goals when it comes to using 90% target language in your world language class. Whether you are a Spanish teacher, French teacher like me, or any other world language like German or Chinese or Russian, welcome to the party. We've got jackets. It's a great place to be because we are all here moving towards more proficiency in our classrooms. And today our topic is we're going to figure out exactly how we can design our curriculums with the end in mind to make sure that we are able to use more target language in class through the vehicle of good structure. When our students know exactly what their goals are every day and we can use the vehicle of a well-structured curriculum, everything falls into place so nicely. Now, this material is going to be useful to any world language teacher, no matter what your curriculum looks like or what level of freedom that you have. Good design is going to help you no matter what level you're at, either level 1 or level 2 or level 3, whether you're at 50 to 60% target language like I'm currently at, or you are already at 90% target language, this is going to help you. Maybe you are in a department where you use a beautiful textbook, where everything is done for you and you've got all of the resources that you need, and what you are looking for today are strategies to help you better use the resources that you already have in order to use more target language with your students. You're going to find things today. Maybe you are a world language teacher who works with unit-based instruction, where you're not really using too much of a textbook, but you do have relatively well-structured units that you're working through in pieces, like thematic units, maybe clothing or going to a restaurant or greetings and introductions, etc. Maybe you are working with a very strict plan, either from a textbook or from themed-based instruction that might go with an IPA or maybe an OPI, like a MOPI, or a modified version of that, or a portfolio that has an assessment at the end that is either state or district or school mandated. And you might not have a lot of wiggle room, but you know that you could incorporate more target language into the way that you teach that curriculum, because every teacher is going to teach that thematic unit differently. Or maybe you are like many world language teachers out there and you are proud Department of One and you have a lot of freedom in what you choose with what you get to teach, but you also are really looking for a little bit of guidance on exactly how you're going to structure that curriculum. So I've been in 3 of these different situations. I've been that Department of One. I'm currently in that Department of One where I've been handed the keys to the kingdom and nothing else. And textbooks that are older than my students. Great. Oh my God. So I'm working with some dusty worksheets and nothing else. That was my first year teaching. And then years 2 through 4 for me was working with a powerhouse department where we had thematic units that were fairly rigid in terms of the assessments, but a lot of wiggle room in how we could teach them. And they were based on thematic units of exactly what we could do. And the grammar topics were, here you go, this is what you've got to cover, but you can do it however you want to. And that is also something that's very common in the world language sphere, where people use the ACTFL standards and they pull from that. And then there's, of course, also the Department of One feel, where people have a lot of freedom in what they do, but they also don't really have a lot of support. So today I'm going to be talking to the people who have lots of freedom, but not a lot of support, because those are the people who need help the most. I'm also currently in that boat. I have the benefit of having a lot of resources already made because this is my 5th year and I am a professional at creating resources, so this is what I do. And this is also something that I enjoy and I love and I'm good at, and here to bring it all to you people. Are you ready? So today we're going to talk about how you can make this happen for you, no matter what level you are at in terms of freedom or responsibility. So let's get down to it. Number one thing you need to know, high five, for all the progress that you've made so far, because you deserve it. And then number two, you need to start with the end in mind. Because if you just start like scrolling things down of like, what am I going to do on day one? What am I going to do on day two? What am I going to do on day three? Stop it. No. You need to start on day 180, final exam. What do you want them to know at the end of your course? Whether you're at level 1 or level 2 or level 3, or you've got AP or pre-AP courses, what do they need to be prepared for? We all know this, hopefully. Backward design. You need to start with the end in mind. Where do you want them to be? What level? I highly suggest that you start with the actual can-do statements because those are really helpful. I put them on the board, usually every day. No, I don't. Like when I remember, so like 2 or 3 times a week. And they go up with my objectives. And these are great guidelines also for your curriculum. So this year I'm teaching level 1. When I was making my level 1 curriculum, I had the actual can-do statements up, open, as well as the standards. But the can-do statements are a lot more reader-friendly, especially if you're designing your curriculum. But you can do this with thematic units too, or if you have a textbook, especially if your textbook's not proficiency-friendly, and say, these are the things that I want my students to be able to do. If I'm at a level 2 curriculum, then you're looking at, that medium level of proficiency, which is mid. Or if you're novice high, like me, and you're not really reaching into intermediate at all, then you're just looking at novice mid to novice high. And so I looked at the novice high ones and said, I can describe my family. I can describe my friends. I can describe my school schedule. I can talk about basic likes and dislikes. That's what I'm working towards in my level 1 curriculum. Now what that means is that they can say those things and they can write about those things with accuracy. They should be able to understand more than that, but that's what I'm working towards in my goal. So let me tell you a little bit about what this process is going to look like when it comes down to exactly how that curriculum gets hashed out. First of all, you can't just start jumping into topics in German, French, Chinese, Spanish, Swahili, whatever you're doing, without having any kind of background in how to be a language learner. I do recommend that on day 1 and day 2 that you start with some, hey, my name is, what's your name, and not syllabus. I do recommend that. But besides that, you need to start off with a good, strong foundation in why we're here, language learning, the basics of why this class is going to be so much different than your other classes so that that expectation is there. I spent about a week doing this in a block level course, and it sets me up for success all year long. So that's about the first week. The second week is high frequency verbs. I don't care what level you're at. High frequency verbs. Repeat after me, high frequency verbs. If you need some help with this, go visit Terry Waltz for Super 7 verbs, Mike Pito, Sweet 16 verbs, and you'll get absolutely everything that you need to know. It's amazing. They are wonder people. These sets are going to set you up for success with anything that you need to do, no matter what level you are working with. And they will also set you up for every single activity that you will ever do in world language class. These are the essential verbs for communication and the ones that are, of course, the highest frequency. That's what you start off with, no matter what you're supposed to teach. I won't tell anybody. If you are in a higher level class and you're preparing for AP, you do these in all the tenses. And you do these with really well-structured, open-ended activities, discussions, stories, weekend chats, cool things like that. Now, I teach level 1 and level 2. This semester just level 1. So for level 1s, the first unit that we're doing is all about me. Since they are novices, they're talking all about themselves. So we're learning how to describe ourselves, what we look like, and our personalities, and what we like to do. And then we're going to be moving on to our school schedules and our family life, and then foods. Because foods is just such a high energy unit. It's so much fun to end the semester off that way. So that's what my first year is going to look like. Now, in terms of exactly what I do for, that's really like the themes and the vocabulary, but in terms of grammatical structures, it follows what the students need in order to communicate those ideas. So when we're talking about other people, we use those words that we need in order to talk about other people. We don't study a specific verb. We don't study a specific structure. We're looking at the verbs that we need in order to communicate in that context. Like when we do activities, we're going to use the verb to go, but we're not going to look at a verb chart per se. We're going to be using it in terms of what do you do after school? Where do you go? And then we'll also learn some prepositions in order to describe those ideas too. So of course grammar is a part of this. It's just that you're going to reframe your idea of where grammar falls into this. And use verb charts if you want to, if you think that your kids are going to do well with that. But just trust me, that's not where you need to spend most of your time. Now, for level 2s and level 3s, you're going to be getting into different topics, and you're going to be getting into much further depth in different tenses. But when it comes to designing your curriculum, please keep this in mind for level 2s and level 3s. Get the phrase out of your head, they should know that. If they don't know it, if they don't understand what you're saying when you're talking in class, what are they going to do? Put it on a note card? No, this is target language that we're talking about here. So this is something that you need to hit hard. If there's a couple people in class who don't understand what you're saying, surprise, there's a bunch of people in class who don't know what you're saying. So make sure that it's something that you're doing over and over and over again in lots and lots of new contexts. This is something that I used to talk about all the time with teachers in level 2 and level 3 classes. It's like, all right, cool. We're ready to do 90% target language because they're level 3 now. Unless you were speaking 90% target language in level 1 and level 2, I don't know if they're ready for that. I don't think they're ready for that, Jelly. You can try, but I don't know if you're going to have the results that you really think you're going to have. You got to meet your students where they're at. If you want to get your students to 90% target language, add a level 1 course. You know what you really need to do? Part of this is you need to teach them everything they need to know about the flow of the classroom. So one of the absolute first things that I do in those first few weeks, I would say, is heavy hitting doses of classroom commands, student phrases, and teacher phrases. So after we do high frequency verbs, that's a big part of what happens. And don't be afraid to review those in 2 and 3. It's not a big deal. It honestly might not take as much time as you think it will. As much time as you think it will. Now, here are some strategies to help you get your curriculum designed with the end in mind, no matter what level of freedom that you have, because I've had both experiences with this. What I did with lots and lots of freedom being a department of 1 is I took, you can either do this with poster board or maybe just even like a big sheet of paper, or you can do this in Airtable or Google Docs, pick your tool of choice. But I took out the ACTFL can-do statements, the South Carolina World Language Standards that are based off of ACTFL, so take your state standards, and I put them together on my computer, and then on the floor I had one of those big giant sticky note things, like butcher paper that you can put on the wall, and I just wrote down all of the can-do statements that I wanted my level 1s to have by the end of their final exam. Something helpful that I also had is I already had made the speaking final exam, which is the most important final exam if you ask me. Speaking, that's the reason we're here. So I knew exactly what they needed to be able to do for the end of the year. Start with the end in mind. And I looked at what I wanted them to be able to do, and I tweaked the ideas and the units for what we needed to prepare for by the end of the year. And I divided it loosely throughout the year. And I added at the beginning some time to make sure that we knew how to be good language learners. Of course, some time for culture and cultural competency. Don't forget that. Included in what you're doing. And some key phrases for target language that would allow me to use more target language in class, which is, of course, classroom routines. If you are teaching an upper level class, 2s, 3s, and 4s, just do the same process with your own themes that you're going for and for your standards and your levels of proficiency that you're targeting. So intermediate, low. Intermediate, mid, good for you. Go for it. Yeah, if that's where you're getting to. Intermediate, high. Yes, even better. So especially if you're preparing for AP Lang, oh my God, yeah, like have the exam out like right in front of you for backward design. So important. I hope that these tips were helpful to you for when it comes to designing your curriculum. If you don't have a lot of freedom when it comes to designing your curriculum, you can still look at the resources that you already have or that you are supposed to use and evaluate them with the can-do statements to see exactly what's going to work for what you've already got and what can you tweak. What do you need to kind of ditch? And what are some things that you might need to add to your repertoire a little bit to make this curriculum work for you? What you can always do as well is there's no harm in asking. I asked my department, hey, can I move this around? Is this something that I can omit? Are y'all cool if I don't do this quiz but I stick to this assessment? Ask. And if it's something that doesn't work, at least you'll know and then you can go from there. There's no harm in asking. At least you'll know the answer. And if you are a brave Department of One, let me know because I would love to chat. I know your life. And I hope that you had a great time watching this video and that you learned some things. And if you did, subscribe to all of the adventures at La Libre World Language Learning because you're going to find a lot more stuff here and tips for how to use more target language. We have a whole blog series on this. We have expert panelists that are giving you all kinds of goodies to make sure that you've got what you need to hit your goal of 90%.